have the first question, and then you can have your questions. My question is to Adrian. I might introduce myself. I'm Håkan Julander. I'm a part of the stud. What are we called?
Support committee for Julian
Support
Assange.
committee for Julian Assange. And first, thank you so much for such a wonderful film. Thank you so much. One applause. Very touching, very true, and very insightful. Thank you for doing this. My first question is, why is it called Ithaca?
Ithaca comes from a poem by Cavafy, the Greek-Egyptian poet. And the story of this poem and its relationship really to the film is that when John and Gabriel were touring the United States, at one point they were doing a whistle-stop tour of many cities in very, very few days. It seems like that rhythm hasn't stopped in a couple of years. But Gabriel tells the story very well. But he, when they were absolutely slutskörda at the end of a long week, they would put on this rendition of Cavafy's poem Ithaca, and it would lift their spirits. And it's a rendition by Sean Connery, and you can find it on YouTube. It's a beautiful rendition of the poem, and it really is the poem. I mean, we've had many interpretations when we were touring in Australia with Q&A tour. Many people asked, well, is Ithaca Australia? Thinking of Ulysses' journey, like very long journey to return home. I think it's a reference to a journey where the connection and the wealth and the richness of human contact has enriched our lives, and this is part of Ithaca's journey, part of the film's journey.
It's, do you hear me? It's a pretty daring choice to name the film for something that you never talk about. I mean, you never hear about it in the film. I have a poem here. Is there a line you want to read, John? Somewhere in the...
I'll tell you,
Sorry.
Keep Ithaca always in your mind. Arriving there is what you're destined for. Don't hurry the journey at all. Better if it lasts for years, so you're old by the time you reach the island. Working with all that you've gained on the way, but not expecting Ithaca to make you rich. Ithaca gave you this marvelous journey. Without her, you wouldn't have set out. She has nothing left to give you now. And if you find her poor, Ithaca will not have fooled you. Wise as you will have become, so full of experience, you will have understood by then what these Ithacas mean. It's every man's journey. We all undertake that journey, and we all undertake the journey together.
Thank you, that was beautiful. Can we get a question from the audience? No?
No.
Okay.
Everyone is taken by the film.
How many hours of footage were put into it? It seems like a tremendous amount of work. I'm just thrilled and at the same time speechless again for the next time of this evening, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more from your point of view.
Thank you. Yes. So in terms of sort of number is unquantifiable, but we shot for over 200 days. And many of the days, especially the days around the hearings, were many hours of that day. And for those who weren't here before the screening, John was saying that, you know, it was many hours of filming during the day, and then, you know, from the crack of dawn until late in the evening, because sometimes after the hearing, you know, Ben Lawrence, the director of the film, and Niels, our cinematographer, would sit John down in the kitchen where he was staying, and you know, grill him for another hour and a half or two. So it was a very intense and quite long period of filming, and in spite of that, it happened within a very compressed period of time, which was, you know, really 2 years for what a film usually takes. But yeah, a little bit about sort of the journey of the production was, as John was also saying before, Gabriel and John saw Julian in Belmarsh prison shortly after he was dragged out of the embassy, and they came away, and Gabriel says he came away thinking that was the last time he would see Julian. And you know, I think we've all had this moment of what can we do. Well, I was also involved in film in Spain, and Gabriel and I, you know, spoke, and immediately we connected with a very natural choice, which was the cinematographer Niels Lallefuet, who's a Danish cinematographer and filmmaker, and he had been following supporters outside of the embassy for a long time already. He had an archive, and he just immediately came into the project and started shadowing John in his campaign, his touring around Europe. And it was very important. We felt that there was an imperative need to document. This was, you know, documenting, you know, history in a way that was unfolding. So, you know, we jumped straight in, and then the way that Ben Lawrence, the director, came in, you know, Gabriel was looking at a lot of Australian directors, and when we saw his films, we connected with somebody who had a sensitivity that was, we understood immediately that it was Ben. You know, he had directed a feature documentary and a narrative feature, so we clicked, and he jumped straight in as well, not knowing anything. He took a leap and was in London very soon before very shortly before the hearing, and then it was an intense period of work after that.
And whose idea was it to focus on John, or in this film? I mean, did you have like we have to make a film, and was it just growing organically, or?
Yes, I think that's it was a natural choice. Was, you know, to, you know, at some point I suppose consciously or subconsciously, how do we not tell a story, but like how, you know, what is this what is this film, or how do we start on a film? And this
was it really important to make it personal, to make it family, and not make another? Was that what you wanted to achieve, to make it?
Yes, we set out to connect with people from the human side, the side that hasn't been told or seen, or that, you know, the public at large has not been able to glimpse at all. I mean, there's been years of slander and an avalanche of horror, really. So, you know, how to tell of the Julian that, you know, the family knows, that we know, that people can connect with.
And how did it feel for you, John, to be the star in the film all of a sudden?
I'm still not about star.
You are.
The victim. But, you know, Ben would sit me down every evening and give me a glass of wine and some salami or something to eat, and then go through this process and it went on for weeks. Now, it was a bit like, do you know Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment? The Grand Inquisitor. Ben is like the Grand Inquisitor. He's not at all forceful, and he knows that eventually the inner life of, in this case, in Dostoevsky's case, the murderer, which I'm not, and in Ben's case, me, the inner life will cause you to reveal yourself. Now, I didn't want to. I thought, Ben, this is none of your business. You know, I'm just here to get Julian free, but on and on and on he went. Until what you saw, you know, is a bit embarrassing because, you know so much about me now, and I don't know anything about you, and it's hardly fair.
It was especially one session where you were sitting in the kitchen with all these plates behind you. Was that one night, or was it many nights at the same spot?
Every night was at the same.
Oh, so you had the same setting every
Yeah,
night. Okay,
yeah,
because
yeah.
sometimes you had wine, sometimes you had other things. So, okay.
It's 13 hours of interview only in the kitchen.
Okay. Yeah. Question.
Public support is important for the outcome of the case. You have a the public support is important for the outcome of the case.
The public support is important. Yeah.
For the outcome of the case.
Yeah.
You have a very strong film and very powerful message. How many people do you reach when you are distributing film in the way you do currently?
Okay.
And what would be the effect if you would make the film available on the internet, for example?
All right, good question. Yeah, he says it was a very powerful film, and what do you expect? How great of an audience do you expect, and could you distribute it in another way to put it out free on the internet? I suppose.
To reach many.
Or yeah, have you distribution? Is that the question?
Yeah, I'll leave the distribution
Yes.
to you.
Adrian.
But just with the other part of the question, you know, every Q&A is like throwing a pebble in a pond. Okay, you make a little splash and the ripples go out. So we start at the furthest point from the center of power, and we move towards the center of power, say London, or in Australia, Canberra, or in America, Washington. And by the time we get, say, do 30 Q&As, by the time we get to the center of power, we have, in the case of London, the film reviewed in every major newspaper, and people ringing up and saying, can they put on a Q&A? The first one, it falls not flat, but it's even. And this simple technique or imagery or metaphor of just throwing a pebble in the pond and watching the ripples go out and then doing it again and again and again works. And it is really like creating history in a community. How history upwells inside the consciousness of many, many human beings. Where you try to mirror that by having a Q&A here, then another one in Gothenburg and so on, another one in Bergen, another one in Oslo, and on and on and on. Eventually, you get to the circumstances where we are now, where we've built a worldwide tidal upwelling of support for Julian. And we'll do 45 in the United States, and the same effect, unless of course there's some gigantic catastrophe which overwhelms us all, like, you know, Ukraine war getting out of hand. But that's the circumstance. I hope, and just to illuminate it a bit more, so that you have now the convention is money, media, politics. Money, media, politics. Money, media, politics, okay? You buy media, you get political effect. But for small movements, like you and I are in, that doesn't work. So you've got to go on the road. So I went to Edinburgh to check out a hall, okay? And in the entrance of the hall, I looked for the phone number of the hall manager. Up on the notice board was Jeremy Corbyn, 8:30 next Tuesday. I thought Jeremy Corbyn's on the road. And then a couple of days later, I got a phone call from Lula da Silva, the president of, well, then, you know, ex-president and to-be president, from his advisor. They call them assessors. Anyway, he said, "Can I come to Paris for a photo opportunity?" So okay, I went to Paris and we did with Stella. I did the photo opportunity, and I asked Lula, "How's he going?" And he said, "Well, I've just been in Berlin, and then I was in Brussels. Now I'm in Paris, and now next week I'll be in Madrid." So Lula's on the road. So we understand that to get a movement going, the magic of it is to come and speak to you. 10 people, 5 people, 3 at a dinner party. It's just magical. And to prove it to you, the proof, even you might look at me with some doubt, "Oh, well, you know, we haven't got power, we haven't got newspapers behind it." The proof is here now. It's worldwide, this Assange support group. And for anything you want to do, anti-NATO, no NATO, anything you want to do, that is the model that's appropriate in these times when the money, media, politics dominates. Sorry for such a long answer.